Shaykh Fadhlalla, I just want to remind you. Rahim. Welcome to everybody to this SFH Foundation and Arya Samaj Gauteng joint program. Welcome to Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri and Umesh Bahadur. Today we're going to be discussing faith and humanity. Umesh Bahadur is a director in the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, specifically in the Wetlands Program. Growing up in Durban, his interest in the environment led him to become actively involved in South Durban on environmental justice issues, challenging the polluting petrochemical and paper companies. He has also been a teacher and last year was elected to the head of the Arya Samaj in Gauteng. The goals of the Gauteng Arya Samaj, which literally means Society of Nobles, is to create support and spaces for organizing enlightening Vedic-centered initiatives that strive towards making the whole world noble. Vivanto Vishvam Aryam. As lockdown commenced, Umesh and his organization saw an opportunity to explore similarities in the work they wish to do with different groups of people to overcome artificial barriers by sharing a common purpose. They started a series called the Virtual Bridge Series with keynote speakers and teachers who have made personal impressions on them. A few years ago, Umesh met Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri at a conference for the first time and was intrigued by the speech he gave and found that there were resonances with the teachings of the Arya Samaj and the Vedas. And so he has invited Shaykh Fadhlalla to share of his wisdom and insight into the bigger picture of our human condition and potential. Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri is an acknowledged Sufi sage and teacher who for over 40 years has dedicated himself to sharing the transformative wisdom lying at the heart of Islam, its practices and philosophy. Though born in Iraq, his quest for worldly education and spiritual enlightenment took him to Europe, India, the Middle East, America, and the Indian subcontinent as a whole. His journey early on led him to recognize Swami Chinmayananda as a realized being and teacher with whom he spent time during a critical juncture in his own quest. And it was the Swami who encouraged Shaykh Fadhlalla to reclaim his Islamic heritage. This he did with gusto, single-pointed dedication and indefatigable persistence, reading, researching, teaching and writing, hoping to galvanize seekers along the similar path of striving to realize their spiritual potential. His life's mission has been to show how our lives are underpinned by Tawheed, or unity, or the incredible and intricate interconnectedness of being, both outwardly and inwardly, seen and unseen, this life and the next. Followers of non-Advaita Vedanta would easily recognize this integrative approach to understanding who we are and what we may become. 25 years ago, Shaykh Fadhlalla finally settled in South Africa, where he has been engaged in writing books and giving talks to those who wish to know who they are and how to live in balance joyfully. It's with great pleasure, Umesh, that I invite you to take over and pose your questions to Shaykh Fadhlalla. And hopefully towards the end of this program, we will have a chance to share some questions from the viewers. Umesh, please.
Thank you very much for that introduction and the kind words. And I thank Shaykh Fadhlalla for agreeing to be present in this session with us. Our dreams are many, and we take them one step at a time. I think I just want to fill in the gap between the first time that I met the Sheikh and now. just to explain the reason I found this session so important. It was many years ago, I think around 2016 or so, that I visited the Rasuli Center in Pretoria with a friend of mine, Bhai Madan, who told me one day, I'm going for this conference, would you like to come? So I joined him and drove to Pretoria from Johannesburg, and got out of the car and thought to myself that I had never been into a mosque before. Is this okay? But I never shared it with him. So suffices to say that I walked in and was totally enthralled with the kind of reception I got at the center. And it just got better for the whole day until I was fortunate enough to listen to the discourse given by the Sheikh. And it actually made a lot of sense to me, number one. And secondly, it was so refreshing to see a side of Islam that I had never seen before. So much so that towards the end, after the discourse was finished, like we do when we see people, learned people within the Hindu community, you bow down and touch their feet. And I was in the process of doing that, and I thought it was inappropriate because I thought I had learned so much that day at the Rasuli Center. But fast forward many, many years, that picture of what I experienced at the Rasuli Center stayed in me. And when we started up the Arya Samaj, and one of the core areas of work that we wanted to do was to look at the commonalities within all the religious bodies, the obvious person to start with for me was the Sheikh. And I didn't quite know, because between then and now, we didn't really keep in touch in terms of what kind of work the Sheikh does, whether he's still active, whether he's just writing. So I took a chance, and my message went up as far as Canada to Anjum, who eventually put me through to Abbas, and here we are today. So it's with the utmost appreciation that I thank the Sheikh for availing himself for today's session. And I think we're hoping that we can kind of join many dots that for us make the world very, very hazy. So Sheikh, assalamu alaikum and namaste. So I think just kind of to get the conversation going, Sheikh, the basic thing that we kind of get concerned with is looking at our world currently. And our world is very technologically driven. And many of our religions come from a distant past that was very, very different and did not have this technology. And the question that we often ask ourselves is, now that the world has changed, does this mean that we need to react to the world's challenges any differently? And I think that kind of is the starting point at where we, in terms of the Gauteng Arya Samaj, we sometimes get tangled with. Sheikh?
Our world and the human experience is confined within the space-time dimensions. And the ultimate drive everyone has, every sentient, living, conscious being, intelligent being has, is to be liberated from limitations. We are all questing a state, a condition, an inner zone that gives us at any time contentment, peace, security, and as a result of all of these, joyfulness. The human being is a seeker of joy. But because our first encounter is with the outer world, the up and the down and the food and the rest and the shelter. So this becomes our priority, and in time, like in our time now, takes over. So it becomes the only thing. And our quest for basic science, technology, advancement, ease of living is all in order for us to have a bit more space and time to quest that which is beyond space and time, but we end up deeper in it. So the idea of technological help to make life a bit easier, to give us comfort and ease, ended up being our God. And that is why humanity is miserable. No matter how much they try to deceive themselves, rewrite their biography, most people are fearful, resentful, deeply angry, and downright miserable. And that's why they resent being a bit of peace and quiet. Shut up for 2-3 months in your house. No. But what about all the dresses I've worn? I'd like to show them. I like to wear them. What about this? I want to have a party. I want to. So this is who we are. So humanity is reaching a point of almost absurd ridiculousness. All of us. And we give it a name: civilization, development, or growth, and all of that. And you know in your own work how much we have damaged everything that is natural, which has been going on for hundreds of millions of years. Within 4 or 5 decades, we have almost destroyed it. So it may well be the last, if you like, bit of us awakening before extinction. So the issue of technology is all outer. What about inner technology? What about who are we? It's all become an outer quest and abusiveness. And that is why we are unhappy more and more, because we have gone into a cul-de-sac. Nothing wrong with technology, provided you know where to stop. You know, nothing wrong with science, nothing wrong with all of the quest of science. Science is still at its infancy. We suddenly discovered that energy and matter are interchangeable. You can release the energy inside matter, and for a couple of kilos of uranium, you can cause one of the biggest explosions and havoc. And the politicians sit there proudly that we are the greatest. And the poor, miserable 20, 30 scientists who fiddled and middled and ran away from their domestic chores into a faraway laboratory, they are now suffering. So why did we release this monster? It's the beginning of it. There is no higher wisdom. And that higher wisdom can only occur if you stop the lower wisdom. Lower wisdom is to be strong, powerful, wealthy, able, whatever. But this won't last. So higher wisdom will tell you that you're looking for something that is durable. You're looking for something that is beyond space and time. So it is all right, this tiny little bubble of discovering this and that, and so what? It's only caused more destruction and more division and breakdown of communities, families, society, everything. That's in the name of technology. It has to be curbed. And one of the biggest disasters is that everything now seems to be hinged to the use or abuse or so-called development of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence stops life because it's to do with propagating more and more traces of the past. But what about will? Human being has a will, and they can turn away from it all. It will come to it. We are running in a very dry and inhospitable patch of desert in our human journey. That's what I know.
Okay. Yes, and I think it's important that we're aware of it, because I mean, the world that we find ourselves in, I think part of this virtual bridge series is around the insecurities that are converging in one place. And we've got now all this environmental degradation. We have this domination of the Western economies of the world's resources. We have all this lack of food and water security that permeate the world. And it seems like there is an increasingly multipolar world, and everyone seems to be arming themselves. If it's not literally with guns, then most certainly metaphorically in terms of their hatred of each other. And how does humanity overcome this kind of situation? Because it seems as though the odds are against us. Or is that so, Sheikh?
Go to the story of creation. How did it begin? From what? Now, in a nice, popular way, we've accepted the idea and the illusion of a so-called Big Bang. Even that word was coined in jest by somebody who disobeyed it, didn't want it. He actually believed in a constant state rather than an event. Anyway, so we all seem to like the idea that something had begun and therefore also it will end, birth and death. So we say, oh, it makes sense. Where did it begin? If you concentrate on that point from where the absoluteness or boundlessness gave rise to what we are now confined in space and time, that is the key issue. If there is any serious meditation to be done, it's on that point. From where boundlessness, not subject to space, time, or anything discernible through the limited mind, which only occurred and came up later on due to all the movements of electrons and neutrons and all of the other things creating a mind. That particular point, which is the barzakh, which is the interspace between the absolute, infinite, boundless, timeless, and the limitation that we are born in and we die in with a lot of fear and anxiety. That is where the question and the answer lie. Now, so we are now within this space and time. We have things that we have to perform. We're obligated by instinct, by our inner nature, to eat, to rest, to be sheltered, to be fairly secure. And more important than all is to have hope. Hope means tomorrow will be better. Hope actually proves that you and I are not who we think we are. That you and I are spirits not subject to comings and goings and days and nights. Otherwise, where does hope come from? So hope, which is in absolute sense, now becomes domestic and my hope. So I have to say, no, maybe if I'm patient for a few more weeks, the employment will be better, or my wife will behave, or my children will stop, giving us all this hard time, or whatever, hope. Or I can make more money. And by the time you make it and you have all the space and time, there's nowhere to go to spend it. So that is where nature, or if you like, the truth, has the last and the first, and in between, the true laughter, true joy of discovering the truth. So we are all caught within this space and time, yearning for that total security that is not subject to anything, that is on its own. That is why the more I am dependent on others, the more I may have a bit of comfort and ease, but deep down, I resent it. I want to be independent. Then I know I can't. Independent of what? A human being needs other human beings. So what is it? No. You discover then this is where high spiritual, if you like, unfolding comes. That there is a source, we call it the spirit, or a self, or a ruh, or whatever, or innermost, or atman in you. That is who you really are. But from that cosmic light, there are numerous creations which are earthly. The animal in you, which has been evolving, the mind and remembrance in you, and all of the other things that we're all incumbent with, which can be helpful in our short journey on life, but can be also very depressing if we really take them seriously as that they are real. They are shadows of the real. So the story is very simple. There is only one. It's not about Advaita. There's nothing other than that. It's boundless. But within it had come these bubbles, one of which is our universe, one of multiverses, which we don't know much about. If you know this, that means you are transcending the limitations of this. That means you don't seek any more knowledges, nor are you curious about other universes. I had enough from my universe. I graduated from it. I discovered that was my little jumping point, or my little ladder back to the celestial zone of boundlessness. So it doesn't matter. You've done it. So you remain acknowledging your local birth, your parents, your religion, your culture, your language, that's fine. But you've gone beyond that. So you've done your story. You're not perfect anymore, but you're completed. It's a big difference between how you say, he is a perfect being. Rubbish. Perfection implies constancy. He's not a perfect being. He will die, or he will sneeze, or he will fall. But you can say he's completed it, meaning completed the story of who is he, who is she, who am I. When you complete something, then it is full. Then you are fulfilled. Then the ups and downs will have their place. You are in a zone of constant change, challenges. So it needs a certain amount of involvement from us, interaction, like a kindergarten, trying to improve it. I don't want them to damage and poison all the wetlands. There are zillions of other creatures in there, and they have got their part of the ecological balance. So you try to have conservation. You like to look after them. We don't want to damage everything. So this is very basic, if you like, intelligence. It is not very high level, but it is creational or existential intelligence, one of the numerous different zones of intelligence. Ultimately, you transcend it all. You are in that zone of infinitude, which is the characteristic and the quality of your own soul. So you've completed your purpose. You don't deny the lower person, the localities, the temporariness. You deal with them if you can. And if you can't, it's not your business. You're not the creator. Do what you can. So you live in the moment, without the constant toing and froing in the past, regrets, fears, sorrows, and also all kinds of guilt and bad conscience. Wonderful to have bad conscience. That means there is conscience, and conscience is timeless. So if somebody tells you, I feel a bit guilty, really hug them. You say, oh, you really have a spirit. I thought you were a dead being or a sleepwalker, as most of them are. So once you begin to discover that all of what you ran after or considered important had their local importance at that time, but in reality, they're inconsequential. Go 20,000 years from now and see how important is it the present day of the world political miseries. 10,000 years from now, who remember who, what? Who cares? In fact, more and more of the young people, they don't care. So I want to be in a state that I have no anxiety, no hatred, no fear, no sorrow, and all of the other things that the Vedas tell us, the qualities of the beloved of God. So just go to the basics of the popular part of the Bhagavad Gita. Yes. Oh, my friend or my beloved is he who is the same in censure and praise. That means you are a ruh. The ruh does not respond to censure or praise, or you're popular or you're unpopular. Your ruh is in another zone of consciousness, in the boundless zone of consciousness. But you and I, as human beings, function within the zone of limitations, which we have to accept. But equally, we can only be recharged. Equally, we can be truly joyful if we transcend that zone of conditioned consciousness into the real, perpetual state of my soul, which is free, boundless, eternal consciousness, which is the divine presence. So my purpose in life is to balance humanity and divinity. Don't deny either. But as you grow with wisdom and age and so on, you move more and more towards divinity. So the human dramas and the mess appears to be so insignificant, because now your time horizon has become vast, few billions of years. So I said, never mind, Sonny, you will not remember this in a million years. So the poor fellow has just failed his exam and he's unhappy. And here is this wise spiritual father. Says, no, in a million years you won't remember it. Obviously, the son or the daughter will turn to the mother and say, my father must have gone cuckoo. So she said, no, he always had that streak. He always was looking for something else. So this is how it is. We are both and neither. We are here, not of here. We're earthly, but heavenly or not earthly. It all appears, it's all shadows. Here it is, we are all dealing with shadows. lasers and electron movements and all kinds of, that's it. But the reality of it is a constant light that you cannot see. You can't look at the sun, you go blind. So we need an eclipse. The eclipse is the birth of man, the Adamic rise. That is the eclipse that enables us to understand there is a sun there, but is under an eclipse, the so-called eye. That is the criminal. That is injustice. By me seeing myself separate from the absolute cosmic reality. And worse than that is by seeing me as though I can act independently. I don't need anybody. I don't need my parents anymore. I can earn my own keep. It's no longer as it was 100 years ago. I'll starve if I'm not in the family business or in the village chief or whatever. So now I'm independent. I can I can survive. So survival is a tiny little step acknowledging that which is eternally alive. Simple. Once you see it, once you've seen the basic pattern, then you see the map, then you see the atlas, then you know the atlas, and that's it. Then you're content. Then you take what you need for the human side, and you leave that which is not your business. If you have empathy, then you help others who are less endowed than you. If it touches you, you're not responsible. You don't go around pontification. So a child does that because they discovered now a grasshopper, so they want to show it to everybody. By the time they've gone around, they've cut the poor creatures into pieces by him being shown around. He loses a limb here. Courtesy is missing. You see, what I love is the name of your society is honor. Honoring meaning constant awareness and the perpetual state of reverence. Reverencing life. That is the source. That is how God manifests. That's how Atman appears, through life. And then it becomes my life, and it essentially the same as your life, his life, all of life. So there is a natural justice of equality. But if I have reverence, then I see it and I act upon it. Then I respect any living entity. Then that is how it was so important. The Jainists, as long as it is alive, respect it. Don't have this illusion that I'm going to conquer it, kill it, and dominate it. You have no right. We have gone to areas and zones where the human species was not privileged to be equipped for. Deep forest, that's not our domain. But we've interfered so much, we've unleashed so much. And as I said, that may be our extinction because we've been such fools, not having any real respect, let alone reverence. And we talk about nobility. Nobility is that something we truly aspire for. Honor, love, respect. Where is it? So now it's become very superficial, and that's all. And it may change, can't last. We have to celebrate that the source of it all is in charge. We're all in the web of that divine containment and perfection.
Thanks, Sheikh. So it makes so much of sense and raises so many kind of challenges in a different front. You know, I think the more I think that there are so many religious beliefs that float along throughout the world and that permeate through the world, the more you think that the world should be steady and should be having all the answers. And then we find all these communal riots and the violence based on religious kind of differences and that kind of thing. Are we doing something wrong, Sheikh? I mean, in considering, I mean, you've gone, I think you really did touch a little on the spirituality and the fact that we've got this existence, and there's a line beyond the existence that encompasses a longer, not lineage, but a longer span of consciousness. have we lost our faith in fellow humans? Why are we becoming so partisan in what we do?
Because we have not become universalists. We are both. You have to be local. You have to acknowledge your mother, your parents, your culture, your color. No way escaping that. But more than that, you have to move towards the universality from which you emerged. That cosmic light, if you like, that encompasses beyond any possibilities for us to imagine even. We are both. You begin as a local, as a baby, and the baby begins to be sentient in wanting to connect with this physical reality. So it is feeding, sheltering, a bit of love and growth in emotions, and on until the organs are fully developed and grown by the time you are in your 20s, and then you are fully mature. So there is a process that begins with the tiny, if you like, cell, semi-permeable cell, and grows into this cognizant, if you like, understanding, amazing cosmology of the most complex instrument in existence, which is the human being, with all the organs, with all the billions of cells and communication that goes on. So you are local and universal. If you don't move towards universality, you sink back and back into locality in a situation that will only be destructive. There is a movement. The most important thing to bear in mind is that there is a flow in consciousness from the lowest to the highest. There is a rise in consciousness. Also, there's evolution. Human beings now, like us, we're not the same as 400 years ago. Our mindset, the way it's not the same. The language is not the same. Any vocabulary you look at now, any language, probably 30 to 50% of it did not exist 200 years ago. Nowadays you say he's switched off. What is switch? What is it? So there is an evolution that moves on and on back to origin. So locality is vital as a starting point. You don't deny it historically, but universality, that's why you say all religions have their essence the same. Their purpose or their origin, real religions anyway, are the same. Otherwise, they can be cultish, it can be all kinds of things. But all of these major ones. But again, look at the wonderful Hindu traditions. There was no such thing as a religion. There were so many thousands of awakened beings. Enlightened beings is the source of all of the Vedas. They saw the same thing with a slightly different color, slightly different environment, a bit more jungle or a bit more desert here, but they say the same thing. Essentially, the messages of all real world religions, maybe 8, 9, 10, 15 of them, whatever, is that you have to acknowledge where you are. You have to be honest with where you are in your state. But your state now reflects also the macro state, the outer world. So if the outer world matches your inner, your micro, you say, I am happy, I'm content. If it doesn't, then you complain. Now, so your inner state matters most because the outer you have no control over. The world can change in every possible way. There will be 5 meteorites, whatever it is, and we may enter into a dark phase for 20 years, in which there will be hardly any vegetation left or whatever. So we have to be able to focus on your inner state. That's why regular meditation, regular prayers, regular silence recalibrates you. Otherwise, everybody's blaming everybody else, and that will increase because they don't have the technology, the inner technology. And that is, there are factors you have no control over. Environmental climate, except for a tiny little. Don't waste so much. Don't use too much water. Don't use too much chemical. So you have limitations, duties, responsibility. But people are absent-minded. They have work to rush to. By the time they got the word, they've got the money, then they have to be locked down. Isn't what more can nature do to teach us to be a bit more modest? no reverence for higher reality. So religions have served their purpose magnificently. So we don't need anymore to say they're all one, their origin is one, interfaith. It would have been useful 100 years ago, because they were everybody my faith and thing, but not anymore you find the same. So we are now in a most fortunate state to transcend the limitations of, if you like, locality or this and that. We are exposed now to the universality that nothing matters, it's timeless. And science is helping in a small way in bringing in the quantum field into the physical field. And they're constantly in perpetual resonance. You know, they are mutually together. But this is a physical world, it's a table, you know. No point I'm philosophizing. It's energy. I know, but it's a table. Now that energy has become hard. It's now a piece of stone or wood. You have to be real in the local sense, human sense, but never, never leave the constant need to calibrate with your spiritual sense. And it will come in time, if there are still life on earth.
Thanks, Shaykh. And then I think that leads us to the discussion around the resilience and collective values that all of us need in order to cope with these changes, especially in terms of COVID, as you've rightfully mentioned. And I think if we don't learn from this, we won't learn from anything else, I suppose, Shaykh.
You know, nature is very generous. God's generosity is beyond our ability to know its limitation. That's why we like to be generous. If not, we like to be seen to be generous. It's an attribute of God that we like to mimic. So nature does it all the time. We are here, evolved after millions of years, in order through intelligence, through spiritual intelligence, to realize that we are not who we think we are, but you can't dismiss fully who we have managed to give us our thought, who we are. So we are given chance after chance after chance. Difficulties are there. You know, breakdown of a family or a job is for that, for you to review the whole thing. You thought this is the most important, it's not. You're still alive. What are you going to do? So the most important thing is to do one's best in the realm of duality, causality, reason, rationality. That's what the parents try to do with the children. Enable them to grow well, understand well, deal well, be polite, be correct, and all of that. But then to rise higher. This is all at the realm of causal and effect. But where am I in deep sleep? Why do I want deep sleep? It's beyond cause and effect, beyond my mind. My mind is only the interface between the animal and the spiritual, between the earthly and the heavenly. That is the middle, the mind, to make sense of it, to relate the two. But am I only the mind? Why do people then all this drug, all this business here about alcohol? They want to get beyond the mind. They want to numb the mind. They want to still the mind because they have not practiced doing it normally. Quieten your mind, stop it. No thought. They haven't done that. So they have to take drugs and alcohol and so on to slightly numb it in order to put up with the ever increasing difficulties and disasters. We don't have the courage to face things. We just want to dismiss it. No, it's all right. Put on a smile. You're miserable. Everything is lost. So say, look, we lost everything, but that's not the end. God was there for billions of years, if not before, and God is there still now. And I've come because of God. So let me ask. But you have to stop asking anybody else before you ask God. That's why most of the prayers don't get answered. Who are you asking? It's all based on superstition and fantasy. So, I think there is in every situation an opportunity. And in COVID situation, a big opportunity. Learn to shut down. Learn to do it 2-3 minutes every hour. Complete silence. You get recalibrated. Then you will be able to put into perspective your difficulties. And they are manageable, you can tackle. that you need help from others better than you, you can ask them. Or it is impossible, then you don't enter it. So you have to put things in perspective. You can only do that if you leave the zone of your rationality, reason, cause and effect. You need to get to the absolute. That is the reason for most real religions, for you to recalibrate with the absolute. That's it.
Thanks, Sheikh. It's there's so much for us to deal with in what you've said. Muna, I think I'm awestruck with the material that we've covered so far. So I think maybe I could hand over to you.
Thank you. Shaykh Fadhlalla has a way of summarizing things and distilling things into their essences. But Shaykh Fadhlalla, you talked about the inner technology and the desire for the need to go for 2-3 minutes every hour in silence in order to recalibrate. It's very hard for most of us to do that, but I understand from what you're saying that if we don't do this, then we're going to suffer. So in your understanding, what is the most practicable practices for bringing that around, for invoking that in our lives? I mean, is it that you should have a meditative practice, and should it be at regular times every day? Can you just intellectually appreciate this? Is it enough to just contemplate things, or do you have to go into a state of no mind?
In truth, nothing is enough. There is a whole spectrum. You need to intellectually appreciate it, that I made a mistake. I thought this job or this business or this car or this wife, whatever, is the most important thing. So you have to intellectually, as Ramana Maharishi has said so magnificently, it's all according to the extent that you can investigate. Investigate, go to the original, go to the root of it. So it has to be physical, material, emotional, intellectual, subtler, and so on. And then you find eventually everything was spiritual. The whole crisis we have is spiritual. And the suffering we have is because we have not been following the map of reality. The map of reality is that there is one cosmic reality from which has emanated multiple realities, which are the universes, one of which is ours. Within that universe is also, there is a rise in consciousness, which in this case, over millions of years, has emerged as a human being. 50, 100,000 years ago, emerged this awareness of awareness of awareness, which we call the Adamic rise. And the Abrahamic religions say the rise of Adam, or the whatever. So we are in a very special situation that we can reflect upon reflection upon reflection. I am aware now that we are hearing each other. I'm aware that I am in that medium of that connection and communication. So there's awareness of, so be aware, why are you doing it? To show off? Why? Because of your ego is doing it. To be aware that you and I and he and she are really two. One is a shadow, which is the ego self, which in the ancient ways, they were constantly asking us to renounce it, kill it, destroy it. I won't say that. We are a different age. I would say, recognize your ego, recognize you want to show off, smile and laugh at it. Don't you have a sense of humor? Laugh. Who is this thing, this being who wants to show off? Love, it's a shadow. It will make you fall. But the shadow exists because of a light. That is your own soul, your spirit. That is divine. And the shadow can be bovine, can be a most idiot. So watch out, you are both. You're one person who wants to be the most popular, the most showing off, and one day you may end up being the president of a miserable country. So watch out. It is a sick joke, actually. It is the most absurd joke of all. That me, I cannot, I'm not content, I'm not. Who is the me? It's a silly monument that you've been building over the years. Demolish it. Why is it that you love to go to sleep deep with no dreams or no visions or no nightmares. Because you want to transcend your ego. The ego is necessary for your identity. But your identity is the biggest obstacle to your spiritual reality. So watch out. Don't deny your identity, but it is flimsy. So you have to suffer. And then you find the offer was already there, but you were not looking at it because you were caught by the images that, oh, they caused me that. I want to get rid of them. I want to blah, 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 blah. Get rid of your own fantasy. Get rid of your own value system that is transitory. Try and silence the outer so that you touch upon a beam of light of the constant inner. That's it. That's why there is no need anymore to talk, oh, all religions are the same. We're all brothers and sisters, and yet everybody kicks everybody else in their teeth. No. Everyone is a different entity trying to understand and resonate with their permanent reality, no matter who they are, no matter what religion, no matter what color, no matter how much economically or intellectually or skill-wise they are acknowledged. Doesn't matter. We are the same. There is sameness differentiated by the different roles, by the different activities we have undertaken, and the different emotional overlays that we have allowed ourselves to be buried under.
Well, when you put it this clearly, Shaykh Fadhlalla, I mean, that light of recognition kind of fries away all falsity. But you know, as a child, for example, I remember Swami Chinmayananda's lectures that we were forced to attend, full of references to controlling and overcoming your vasanas, and which I resonated with later on as part of the Sufi path of trying to control and overcome your nafs, yourself, your ego self, to control it. And one of the Sufi principles is that you should, as soon as you recognize that this is your ego self speaking or wanting something, you should go against it. So it was the path of, there was a resonance in my experience between the Vedic path and the Sufi path of somewhat of abstinence and renunciation. But as you have also alluded to, we're living in a world now where it is a world of identitarian politics, of celebrating and promoting individualized identities. And as you've been saying now, we get stuck and it doesn't actually help us. We need to be let go of our identities. But when you're surrounded by messages of, you know, express yourself, do this, you know, find your path, express your truth, etc. What are we talking about here? How can we marry the tradition of the past that was really very humble and self-effacing with this almost self-aggrandizing era that we live in? Because it just leads to conflict.
That is why there is global suffering, and it will continue. It's an illusion. You know, if you look at 100 years ago, the world population was perhaps 10% of what it is now. And they were reverencing. People, not only reverencing, especially amongst the Eastern traditions, whether the Zen or the Hindu tradition, they recognized people whom they knew they're more awake than them. There was a natural recognition, and they respected them. And they used their inner technology to be also referred to and made benefit. So we're now going through an exceedingly dark, also no referencing to see how dark it is. That's why the suffering, that's why materialism. Now look at nature's bounty and generosity. The whole thing was more holiday, more waste, more running, more. And then suddenly the whole world has to be locked down. I mean, isn't that generosity beyond limits? So there it is. Kill. The enemy, virus. We began as a virus. So we have to put things in perspective. That is why I think the next 10 years, we will see the collapse of much of the institutions that we thought will be there as reliable, as ongoing, and all. The political institution, the financial institution, all of these things are being shaken at their foundation. But they appear as a small isolated thing, racism. Well, racism meaning is there is a certain measure of unjust inequality in education, in monetary, in this and that. So we didn't take care of it. Since the Second World War, we got completely caught in the outer material, if you like, facade, appearances. The women started having more and more and more makeup, more this, more that, more dress, every half an hour, and the men also more, I am the man, I'm all that. And here it is, the nuclear family. So it cannot sustain itself. What sustains is that which connects and receives its energy from the domain of the infinite, the boundless. We've lost our, if you like, total, true spiritual path. So now it's become, I'm spiritual now. I am a Sufi. Or these are again another version of trying to say that I'm more superior. There is no such thing. We are all the same. Beyond superiority, a spirit, and below inferiority, an animal. That's all what it is. So we have to really see the absurdity of it and laugh, rather than poke everybody's, this is your ego. Don't kill it. 50 years ago, it was essential to talk about denouncing, renouncing, etc., non-attachment. I'm very attached. I'm very much fully attached to the light that is eternal. So I can't denounce attachment. Yeah, times have changed. The essence remains the same. The language changes. I'm redoing a bit of this. The teachings of Ramana Maharishi is very condensed. Actually, there's 160 stanzas. I'm redoing them in a modern language. Most of it, the blessed man says, he says, you have to kill it. You have to, and he was a very pacifist. Not kill it, Baba, just transcend it. Leave it aside. My ego is there, yes, my personality, don't demolish your identity. Just leave it there. Leave it on the desk that you have your cards and your whatever. Leave it there and move on. Leave it. It was important, not anymore. When you are building your career, you have to be, what level are you in this and that? I'm in level 9.2. Good deed. You leave it. A point comes that you find the whole thing was ridiculous. But at that time, you were practicing outer skills, excelling in the outer. It was necessary. But now you've gone beyond discernible excellence. You are constantly looking at the perfection that is boundless, which is in your own heart, which is your own soul. So it's all already there. There has been a tremendous movement in spite of our ignorance and stupidity in the last 3 or 4 decades. And the poor children and the young ones are completely confused. They don't know what has hit them. And the parents don't have a map, so they don't know how to show them. Where are you on this map? Now we are about to fall on this cliff. They don't have it. They don't have a map which connects the outer world, duality, constant change, and the inner constancy of the light of lights. They don't have it.
Shaykh Fadhlalla, you sound at the same time optimistic as well as not exactly pessimistic, because you're giving like a reality check on where we are, but you're also giving a very positive sign. And some of the questions that are beginning to come in now from our viewers are revolving around this issue of, is the world in fact learning these lessons or not? I mean, you're seeing a progression, an evolution, but maybe from the ground level, it's hard to see that we are actually learning anything.
No, actually, from the ground level, it's very depressing, to the point that I'm surprised that not every other person is suicidal. It is like that. It's very depressing. Wherever you look, is darkness. No, it's not optimism I have. It is trust in the ultimate reality, the God of gods, that light of lights. Trust that is beyond limits that I have. And that reality, that governance is in charge. So it's not neither optimism nor pessimism. Human beings are stupid unless they are in reverence to their highest innermost, which is the nobility, which is the noble society. So if you're referring all the time to the absolute in you, full accountability, not just for now, eternally. Why did you do that? So it is balance. The divine light is in charge of this little cosmos of ours. It's beyond optimism and pessimism. It's perfection upon perfection.
Well, you've actually answered my next question, which was somebody was asking how to then practice trust, patience, and sincerity in your life, in your daily life, in order to calibrate with the higher. And you've just indicated part of that, which is this accountability. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, it is also by the opposites. You know, we love the qualities of the divine. The all-loving, the all-generous, the omnipresent, the omnipotent, ever there, non-changing, gives to all, generous to the enemies and to friends, and on and on and on. 200-300 attributes. Now, the opposites of these attributes are the dark shadows of them. Meanness, you know, short-sightedness, impatience, and on and on and on and on. So these are we suffer from those. We suffer from the shadows and the darknesses. So all what we need is to stop it. Stop being mean. You have something, you know, something that you liked very much in your plate, you left it to eat a bit later. Give that away. Not easy. Give that which you want to keep. Quran says it very simply. It says, you will never enter into the zone of sincerity until you give that which you love. If there is love, there will be hate. You must have utter, complete obsession. Once you have obsession with the one, then the rest come, yes, I like this because it's more conducive towards the flow of consciousness, towards higher. So it's good. It's evolutionary. I like that. And I don't like that which is stopping. That's why I said earlier, everything is now going to be reduced to artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence freezes it. We want to move on towards the absolute. Artificial intelligence gives me more to what my ego had been used to. More of the same. It's deadly. It's a killer. But my ego likes it. Oh, yes, yes. They even know exactly what smell I like. Before I even said it, Google answered it. But this will render me less than a stone. Stone has stability in itself. But if I stop thinking, hoping, desiring, wishing, I am less than a stone. So the Quran says that. It says that from the stone also there's springs that come. So we have to watch out. You are, I am, he is, she is an eternal light on a short journey in the changing dualities, good and bad, up and down, birth and death in this world. So we are going through a journey. We are going through a purification. You know, some of these gemstones, they put them in tumblers for days and days and days for it to become smooth and the light begins to shine of the minerals in them. We are like that. We're in the tumbler of day and out, one more year, one more year. And you say, we are now celebrating his 70 years of birth. What the hell 70 years you've been doing? Shame. We should all sit there and weep. After 70 years of tons of food and water and wastage, what have you done? Tell me what. Are you happy? Are you really cheerful to leave this world? Are you smiling as you die? Tell me. Or who else? No, we're being excessively abusive to this generosity of God, which is life, which is not separate from eternal life. Anyway, I can only celebrate and go beyond pessimism and optimism.
So just very quickly, a quick question. Is hope an inbuilt human quality? Is it?
Definitely.
Is it? Yes.
Definitely. It propels us towards the ruh. Ultimately, hope is the reality of now. Hope is everywhere. We teach the child, if you wait now until you're after exam, we'll take you for an ice cream or whatever. Tomorrow. But ultimately, hope is a movement of the now. It's a sliding scale, perpetual now. It's already here. God is already here. Perfection is already here. But I am not there. I am caught in my mind and my stupidities and my worries because I wanted to make a good impression. or opinion of people on me. What? I can't take that to the grave. I must go to the grave with nothing as I was born. In the meantime, I have to practice emptying the mind, emptying the heart, being in the present, being in the infinite moment. That's it. And once I'm there, then 10 more years, 10 less years, doesn't matter really. And the outer losses and gains becomes very clear. Yeah, we lost everything. Yeah, we lost. I didn't read the contract properly, so there was a clause in it that they say they can possess the house if I do that. And so they've come to possess it because they're more clever. They've been the inventors, if you like, of the economic system. So colonialism moves from 500 years ago, acquiring slaves or conquering new lands, to being this and that, and made goods and services. You know, one of the biggest value thing ever were spices. Now one of the cheapest things are spices. You know, one of the biggest movements of Gandhi of make salt, because the government was taxing things, squeezing people out of death. So they said, no, we can make salt in the sea here. No, not allowed. Monopoly. Now we have the economic monopolies. We have monotheistic monopolies. Everybody has to keep. The whole world is regimented out of fear and anxiety because the IMF will not lend us and we want to get re-elected. So we have to make it easy for people. We have to spend more money. On and on and on. Everybody's running like a slave without the hope of one day being liberated. So that's where we are. And everybody's taking it. And then there are movements of this green movement, pink movement, and this movement. What about liberating yourself from your lower self? If you do that, if there is a society of really people of honor, then they are liberated from the illusion as to who they are. Then, if there are 1,000 people like that, I tell you, the whole world will they will pay them to keep away from the malls or from the lavish restaurants because it would be a shame. Can you imagine somebody like that coming to a very, very expensive, lavish 10-course meal restaurant? Can you imagine a Gandhi figure walking into a situation like that? You know, it will embarrass people. They don't like it. Even drunken people, they don't like somebody amongst them who doesn't drink because he shows he's more superior. It's bad enough with our own limited mind. We're confused now, let alone to confuse it more, damage it more. It's absurd. We are going through one of the darkest period, if you like, of absurdity. Why? Because human consciousness had risen. 50 years ago, it was not like that. Because the people who could think were only a few hundred, few thousand. That was all. Now it is the entire community, the entire human fault. So there is a rise in consciousness, much more in quantity, but the quality is still there. You go anywhere, you find people who are truly awake. Many of them are now taking a side role because they see everybody else wants to dance and be in the mall and change dresses every half an hour and eat. And so they said, it's not I can't help. That's why in the East also, whenever there were wise people reaching a pinnacle, they were put aside. No longer people, you don't want wisdom. You want to fool around. You want more money, more holiday, more sex, more rubbish. So that's what it is, you see.
So
we have to read it.
Reading it, yes. You said that earlier, you said that religions have served their purpose and that interfaith activities are also no longer useful. But
no, I apologize. If I said that, I apologize. There is always usefulness. There is a long period of time. Religions have served their essential original purpose, but they're still very useful for most people.
So there's a question about the different take or the different approaches that they have to this light from the reflection of that light. Can we learn anything from these different reflections of light? I mean, the Quran does say, we have created you of nations so that you may come to know each other. And I appreciate difference, but that underlying there's an implicit idea that there is a commonality behind this difference, but also there are different flavors. You referred to the quality of reverence that is woven throughout the Hindu religions. that quality of reverence is something I know that you have admired and talked about. So is there in your mind perhaps different religions have something to offer other religions in terms of their reflections?
I'm sure there are. We are now globally, by we I mean human beings, moving more and more and more into universality. Locality is vital to begin with for survival, for growth, for development, and each locality has a slightly different culture. But the world in the last few decades have become so universal that we all the time are looking for different recipes, different foods, different ingredients. And part of that also is the cause of the COVID-19 situation. We've gone to every little damn, forest and woods and so on, trying to find something that's a bit more enticing. Novelty, novelty, novelty. Fashion, fashion, fashion. Now you may ask, why are we constantly after fashion? Because it gives you an indicator that it is what's come now. This is the fashion today. This is current. So the now is current. Time is eternal. The now is ever there, continuing. So be in the now. Then you don't have a past and you have no fear of the future. Be in the now, you are completely in your own soul. Your soul is eternally in the now. So what I say is that the teaching that has come from different flavors of cultures and religions is now accessible and it's beneficial to everyone. The teaching of the Sufis, for me, some of it were essential to really have a complete understanding of the other religious paths that had influenced me and affected me and I liked. So put them together and you come to a universal presence that based on honesty and based on hope and based on realizing that what you're looking for is looking for you, and realizing that essentially all human beings are the same in essence, at heart. Our soul is the same. Therefore, you have to respect it. Therefore, you have to give it some honor and dignity. Otherwise, we end up as racist as all of the other things, which we are still suffering from a great deal. But we can't just say erase racism by throwing few monuments into the sea. That may reduce my anger, my thing, fine. But what about my jealousy of the others who have money, who have power? I want that. So I say, no, because it's racist, they're not giving. I've just reviewed Albert Schweitzer's life. I was very fond of him when I was a young man. And here he gave up a career in France, and as a great being, he had combined philosophy, music, and theology. And he was very fond of Goethe, whose teaching is also ours, in the sense of that is where the good and the bad don't exist. Anyway, so it's amazing. He spent 30, 40 years of his life in what is now Gabon to establish a hospital. And it still is going, that hospital. But it is in disarray because it was his spirit. He wanted to redeem, if you like, or it was the white man's burden. And then you have, nobody can run that hospital. They recently interviewed people in that hospital and say, there are people from the country who are qualified, but we don't trust ourselves. We don't trust them. There was a few years ago a big strike in, I think, Milan for the garbage collection. And eventually the mayor made an appeal. He said, oh, the world, whoever of you is powerful, please come and colonize us because we can't run our garbage system. Come and take over. We can't. If you are unable to take care of your own mess and laugh at it and stop it, and next time before you enter that zone, watch out. Before you enter, can you exit? Awareness, awareness, awareness. And it's become joyful. Initially, it's terrible because you can't fool around and laugh and poke fingers at others. So you begin to be serious. That's why most religious people are boringly serious. There's no humor in their life. Really, because they are afraid they slip. Stop being afraid. Slip and apologize. No, I don't want to, because I'm a big, I've got huge turbans on my head or whatever. I can't apologize. I'm supposed to be the Pope or the whatever. It's moving away from that. Everybody is a kingdom, and within you lies the light that takes its energy from cosmic light, from God, from divine presence and all. So it's coming to that. It's the beginning. I mean, it may continue and finish and break down fully, or it may grow. So I really am not sure. We will know in the coming few weeks or months and so on. I think we need few years of lockdown of some sort of another.
Well, we hope that it will grow without, maybe we will have learnt our lessons through lockdown. We hope that it will grow. But we have come to the end of this session, and I don't dare say we've run out of time, because I think, Shaykh Fadhlalla, you may then tell me, but time is all we have. But for the purposes of this recording, I'd just like to apologize to those whose questions I haven't been able to pose to you in this session, but perhaps in another one. And Umesh, I'd love to hand back to you, because I know you'd like to say a few closing words.
Yes, kind of a little out of words right now. I think maybe in a better space, Sheikh, I'd like to say more. But thank you very, very much from the Arya Samaj from Gauteng, as well as the Arya Pratinidhi Sabha in Durban, to who we are affiliated. I thank you incredibly for the wise words that you uttered, and for at least making us look for that map and focus on and fine tune where we are and try to get to a better place. So very, very big thank you, and I look forward to the further two in the series, the one on the youth and the other one on love. Thanks, Munna.
Thank you, Umesh, and thank you, Shaykh Fadhlalla, for this wonderful opportunity of seeing the bovine, how the bovine connects with the divine, to quote from Shaykh Fadhlalla. Thank you for this chance to come together and to talk about the things that matter universally, and for also being reminded by Shaykh Fadhlalla about acknowledging that, not denying it, not pretending that differences don't exist, but that going beyond that now, and with respect, with justice, with honor, to look at the light that animates the whole of humanity. I hope and pray that we can all reflect that in our lives through a process of holding ourselves consistently and constantly to account. Thank you very much on behalf of your organization and on ours. Bismillah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Shaykh.